This is the biggest mistake with protein that I see people do time and time again. People still don't know how this works. So here is what you've been doing wrong and what to do instead to get the most out of your training, to get the most out of your food, and to feel better all round. And for even more tips when it comes to protein, you can download my completely free protein cheat sheet, which is in the description on this video. So are you one of those people that has fallen victim to coming out of the gym and thinking that you need to neck a protein shake instantly, the whole anabolic window to be able to get the gains from the session you've just done? Honestly, I've been there. I have friends that have been there. I know people that still do it thinking that if they don't get that protein hit instantly, basically their muscles are just going to sag and fall to shit. But it's just such a massive misconception. Yes, perhaps there is a window that is most optimal to get a hit of protein in for the absolute biggest, most optimal benefits to your muscle growth. But it is also not the be all and end all if you're being consistent with getting your protein in through the day, which is perhaps where you should focus more of your energy rather than just necking that protein shake after a training session and not thinking about it at any other time in the day. That anabolic window for the most optimal gains is also much bigger than you originally thought. The whole thing about you only having half an hour is absolute BS. So in your mad panic trying to get that whole thing down you as quickly as you can after your session and feeling ridiculously bloated and uncomfortable, you are putting yourself through that for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And a big error I see people do is only focus on that one protein shake, even getting super anxious and panicky if you happen to forget to bring it with you to the gym. Honestly, there's so much stress and anxiety over something that really isn't even that important. And I'm not saying it's not important to get your protein intake in. Yes, absolutely it is. Like, protein is king if you ask me. But it's just absolutely not the case that if you have forgotten your protein shake, then you're not going to get the most out of your gym session. I actually don't even drink protein shakes. I don't like them. They bloat the hell out of me. They make me feel so uncomfortable. And there's better ways to get protein in than making yourself feel like shit. Ultimately, that's actually just a bit counterproductive. Regardless of the anabolic window, if you're not getting enough protein in across a 24-hour period, you're really not going to see any benefits anyway. Realistically, right now, I'd probably sack off the whey protein if I were you. I have a protein bar every day. I find it an easy way to boost my protein, but that doesn't hurt my stomach, and I don't have it as soon as I walk out the gym. So if you're sick of spending so much money on whey protein, panicking about making sure you consume that protein shake as soon as you step out of the gym, feeling anxious if you happen to forget it one day, instead you should be focusing on consistency throughout the day. Now, what I mean by this is you want to be looking at around 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. This is a daily target. It's not necessarily a case of banking a few leftover grams and putting them into another day. You want to get consistent with this every day. If you find your protein intake is quite low, I would start the 1.6 mark, and once you've nailed that, you can then slowly build your way up. But aiming for 2.2 straight away is going to be really tough. Say for me, I weigh around 65 kilograms and I aim for around 140 grams of protein each day. Now, I'm not just going to save this all up until the end of the day and then try and get as much of it in as possible. I'm going to work this through from the moment I wake up until the moment I go to sleep. A really useful way to think about it and to work your meals around it is to aim for 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. That includes your snacks as well. Of course, snacks might be a bit lower in those grams because you're not having a massive meal for every snack as well. And that's perhaps where some convenience protein sources might come in quite handy. So in your breakfast, you could be looking at getting some sort of high protein based yogurt in there. For example, I have oats for breakfast, and in that I mix a protein yogurt. You could mix Greek yogurt in there, which would give you a good hit of protein as well. But you probably want to think about the ratios of your food too. If I'm to bulk out my meal with the oats side of things rather than the yogurt, that's going to massively reduce my protein intake. Whereas if I focus on the yogurt and fill the bowl up mostly with that rather than the oats, that will boost my protein. Protein is also something that is so much more filling and satiating. It also takes your body longer to digest and it has to work harder. So ultimately, you use more calories to process the protein that you've consumed. Also, by being more satiated, by having a good protein intake, means you don't crave as much shit. Basically, I'll chip in a protein bar into my day's intake as a snack. Mostly ideal to get your protein from whole foods and animal foods. However, sometimes to get that extra little boost, because it can be quite hard to hit your target, having some convenience protein, supplementation protein, just helps make the whole thing a whole lot easier. Having a protein bar means I get 20 grams of protein just in my snack. And having already had protein yogurt in my oats in the morning, that already gives me around 35 to 40 grams of protein before I've even hit lunchtime. Then when lunch rolls around, I generally have lean beef mince with pasta. You'd be amazed at how many grams of protein you actually get in pasta, even though people weirdly fear it just because it's a carb and carbs are bad, but they're not. The beef mince by themselves are around 30 grams of protein. Combine that with your portion of pasta and you are literally well on your way. That's already half my day's protein intake and I'm halfway through the day. Works out pretty well if you ask me. So I've actually decided to put this into MyFitnessPal as I go through. So I have got my oats in there with my protein yogurt. I've got my oat milk because I have a coffee every single day. I've got my protein bar. I've got my lean beef mince and I've got my pasta. And this is already taking me to 89 grams of protein. So already you can see with the extra snippets of protein that are in other foods anyway, but you wouldn't necessarily think about, that's already boosted my protein. Then I've just put in my dinner. I'm gonna have a tin of tuna, a bagel, a tablespoon of mayonnaise and some broccoli. And that in itself has boosted my protein to 124 grams. So to get to my 140 target, I only need 16 more grams of protein. It actually doesn't need to be as hard as you think it does to get in your protein. Even if you had a bit of cooked chicken as a snack, that would boost it massively. This is at 125 grams of protein just through breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack in the morning. So once you've got that set up, you can literally just rinse and repeat each day. You'll get to know where your protein marker is at with what you're having. If you're to get this consistency with your protein intake throughout the day, I guarantee you're gonna see much better results from your training in the gym than just from necking a protein shake as soon as you walk out the door.